Fun. So many things to learn about a subject that is quite dry. So I will make it as easy to understand for everyone. As Emma was kind enough to say, my name is Thomas. I am an HR. I'm a specialist in HR. I've been working in Canada for the last 15 years already. Like you at one point, I was a newcomer. If you're not a newcomer, it's okay too. We're always here to learn. So I will make it as easy as possible. For today, if you prefer to take notes, no problem. Otherwise, please know that everything you'll see today, you will get the presentation afterwards. And inside of it, you will have lots of links. Everything is made so when you come back to it and you check it, you can understand easily all the information. So I'm going to share my screen right away. And if you have questions, if there's something you don't understand, or maybe you disagree with, it's okay. It's perfectly normal. You can put them, like Emma said, in the chat, or you can simply take a time when I will tell you to open your mic. Another thing also, there's no stupid questions here. All questions are welcome. It's important for you to know your rights. It's the basis of this society. So please let me know when you can see my screen. And if you feel like it, if you want to, open your camera, be with me here, no problem at all. So employees' rights and responsibilities. Today we're going to see 4 main topics. But before that, why is it important? First of all, thank you for being present today because this is critical. This is one of those steps in your professional life. And please make sure to turn off your mics to allow everybody to have the same experience. It is important to understand that the right to work in a safe environment, the right to make sure that your employee respects and comply with the law and pays you the right amount of money, pays it, like allows you to rest, it's very important. And you need to know exactly what you can do, what you're not supposed to do either, and to build confidence in the workplace. So if you know the same thing as your employer, even more, always better. So like I was saying, the 4 main topics we're going to see today are employment standards and basic worker rights. We'll see that there's not a lot of laws here, but they're pretty straightforward, except maybe for the holidays, but we'll go through that. And it's important to know them. It's a basic. Then we'll see health and safety. We'll see also your responsibilities, your duties, and what can you do if something is happening, and also your different resources and tools you can use. Let's go right away in there. So employment standards and basic workers. So just making sure here that we have everybody muted. Perfect. So the New Brunswick, like every single province, please make sure to mute yourself. Very important. Thank you very much. All right. So each province in Canada has different rules when it comes to employment, and we have to be aware of it. So if you are in a different province, you'll see rules are similar, but sometimes slightly different. So we're not going to go through all of them, but we're going to go through the basic ones, the ones that you absolutely need to know. And we're going to go through 7 of them. And as you can see, it's every time just tiny paragraphs here. And again, at the end of this workshop, if for any reason you forget something, you will just be able to go back to the presentation and read those. So the first thing is minimum wage. Usually when you arrive in the country, you have to find a tiny job just to pay your bills. And the minimum wage here in New Brunswick is 15.65 an hour. This has been modified in April of this year, and it will maybe change because it's usually changed, adapted every year. So make sure you're aware of this. The other thing that is important to know is it's not because this is the minimum wage that you should be paid the minimum wage. If you work in a Starbucks, if you work in a Tim Horton, usually they will pay you minimum wage. But if you work as a manager, as a coordinator, in maybe in a hotel, in a unionized environment, well, usually this hourly salary will be higher. The other thing you need to know as well is overtime. You'll see that you are entitled to overtime, usually after 44 hours per week. And overtime means that you're going to be paid 1.5 times your wage. So if you're paid $20 an hour, and you have to work, let's say, an additional hour, a 45th hour, this 45th hour will not be paid $20. It will be paid $30, 1.5 times. So it's important to understand this. Okay, your employer cannot make you work all the time for free. No. The other thing also here is you have to know there's more than this, of course. So for example, you can work a maximum of 8 hours per day, 44 hours per week. There are some exceptions to that, but they're pretty clear in the law. And after that, of course, this will be stated in your contract as well. We'll come back to this point afterwards. Other things that are very important, you are not going to work 8 hours in the day without breaks or anything. No, of course, you're entitled to breaks. So what is known as within New Brunswick, you're allowed to a 30-minute break for lunch after 5 hours of work. Usually, everybody stops after 4 hours and you get a break. There's also coffee breaks that can be allowed. And for this, you can look at the detail in the rules of the employer. It's usually given to you when you sign the contract. So a few things like this that are important to know, but more than this, you can look here on the point number 3, and this is very important. Your employer cannot call you to work an hour and then tell you to go home. Most employees are full-time or part-time employees, which means that your working conditions protects you in this situation. This is very important to know. If you work, for example, in a Tim Horton and your employer is like, hey, I need you to come just for an hour. You will go for an hour, but you will be paid a minimum of 3 hours of work. This is to make sure that employees are not just calling you, hey, work here 5 minutes, 15, 30 minutes, and then go back home. Flexibility is warranted, yes, but it has a price. So in most cases, if you work less than 3 hours, you will be paid a minimum of 3 hours. And if you are not an hourly paid, but a yearly paid worker, this means that your hours may fluctuate. Then if you come to work for 2 hours in one day, and your employer is like, oh, but I'm going to pay you just 2 hours then. No, if you're yearly paid, then the employer has to pay you for the full day. So a few things here. When you look at your contract, if you're paid hourly, yearly, depending on this is where you know exactly how much you should pay minimally every day. The other thing also, if you are a contractor, means that you're not necessarily an employee. And this is very important to know because sometimes employers will make you sign contracts, but it states in there that you're an independent worker. In that case, you are not submitted to this minimum conditions here. So you'll have to be careful. But if you have questions about it, we'll come back to it. Point number 4, every time you get paid, we don't just give you money or a check. The employer has to give you a pay slip that says how long you've worked, on which period of time, which deductions were made, which taxes were paid, all of this. Because the employer has the responsibility to prove that you're declared, okay? You're okay, you're legal. If the employer fails to give you this, well, you can complain, and we'll see how you can do that. Most pay stubs nowadays are electronics, so they're either sent to you by email or they're available on the platform. I strongly advise you, at least 2 times a year, download them. You're going to need them at one point. And the other thing that you need to know is here, the employer has a pay cycle that can vary. So If, like me, you come from Europe or Africa, usually you can be paid once a month. Well, in New Brunswick, traditionally speaking, where usually people are paid either 2 times a month or every 2 weeks. And this is different. Be careful. So if we say you're paid twice a month, it's usually the 1st and the 15th. Then it's no-brainer. You take your salary, you divide it by 24, you know how much you're gonna receive. If it's every 2 weeks, in that case, you're gonna be paid 26 times in a year, not 24. And this means that you're gonna get slightly less, but at least you'll be paid every 2 weeks. So 2 months per year, you'll be paid 3 times. So it's nice, huh? You have to know about it. Don't be surprised. And of course, if you work in the countryside, especially in agriculture, if you're a daily worker, then you'll be paid every day, and so on and so on. So this, when you sign your contract, it's also important to know because this will affect you directly. All right, let's continue here. Number 5, vacations and time off. In Canada, globally, and it's the same in New Brunswick, if you work 1 year, you are entitled to take 2 weeks of vacation. This is the bare legal minimum. Usually, employer, especially if you work in an office or in a unionized environment, you might be entitled to more vacations. And the way it works, it's going to be a little bit technical here, but don't worry about it. You don't have to remember that because usually it's explained very clearly. You might hear lots of people talking about 4, 6, 8%. And if you look, what happened is when you take your pay stub, your total amount of your yearly space, if you take your pay stub, let's say you work 2 weeks, you'll see that you accumulate every time a little bit of vacation. And the fraction you accumulate is represented by a percentage. So if you accumulate 4% of what you earn in vacation, that means that you're saving to have at the end of the year 2 weeks of vacation. If it's 6 weeks, if it's 6%, it's 3 weeks. If it's 8%, it's 4 weeks, and so on, and so on, and so on. We're just talking about here the basics, but you also can negotiate that with your employer. You can ask for more vacation, or you can ask to buy vacations if possible. There's lots of programs and options that are possible. But here, we're going to stick to what's the bare legal minimum. And your employer has to provide you with a minimum of 2 weeks of vacation after 1 year. The other things here that you have to know is in terms of rest, because you are allowed and entitled to rest, not just 2 weeks of vacation per year. You have to rest a minimum of 20 consecutive hours each week. Given that your employer can make you work up to 44 hours per week, the average is closer to 40, but that means that you need a minimum of 24 hours. It's usually a little bit more, but 24 is the bare minimum. If your employer doesn't allow you that, we have a problem, and we'll look afterwards how to fix that. 2 last major things. The first one is, you'll see that in Canada, usually, you don't find a job and be like, okay, I'm set for my career, I'm good. No, you're going to change job regularly, every 2, 3, 4 years max. It's okay. It's part of the culture. It's a little bit slower in New Brunswick, which is nice too, but just be aware of that. When this happens, because maybe you find a new job or your employer is saying, hey, the economy is not great, I need to cut jobs. In that case, please be aware that your employer has to pay you all your wages, everything that is outstanding. So if you work 2 weeks, he has to pay you those 2 weeks. If you haven't used all your vacations, he has to pay you your vacations, he or she, by the way. Everything that is outstanding, like commissions or other things, the employer has to pay you. Usually, ideally, on the day on your last day, but there's a little bit of wiggle room here, and the employer can take up to 21 calendar days to pay you. If the employer fails to do that, you can file a complaint. But it's important to know this. No matter what, when you go when you go, the employer has to pay. Even if you have like a bonus on performance and something like this, you're entitled to it. Even if the employer says, no, you have to work until next year, February, because this is when we actually calculate those. No, you get those. The law is clear. Everything has to be paid within 21 days. The last point here, it's more about the duties of the employer, because it's not just about your rights, it's about the responsibilities of the employer, and we'll go into more details about it. But first, when you start a job, the employer has to make sure that you're being trained, that you have all the right qualifications and experience needed for the job, okay? If you're brand new, you have no experience in construction, and the employer is like, okay, you're going to drive this big crane now. No. You have to be trained. We have to make sure you have the right equipment, certifications for that. The employer has to inform you about all potential health and safety risks that are identified to the job you're going to do. If you're going to work with chemical products, if you're going to work in a hazardous environment or in a cold environment, the employer has to provide you with the tools necessary for your job. So if you're on a, and we'll go back again to that in more details, but if you're on a construction zone, helmet, safety shoes, they have to be provided by the employer. If you work in an office, in a bank, well, you might need a computer. The employer will provide the computer. And the employer also has to make sure that you know how to use the equipment. That's the responsibility of the employer. And you, of course, have to comply with that. The employer has the responsibility to train you if they're on anything that is necessary to handle in the workplace for your job, and has to provide you with a copy of the Occupational Health and Safety Act. Usually, they don't give it to you like this. They will, have a booklet or something on the wall, and they will ask you to read it. Please do it. Don't skip that. That's very important. And also, if there's any type of accident issue, the employer has the responsibility to inquire and investigate about this and solve it. Okay, if you have an issue at work, and we'll talk again after that, whether it's harassment or a work accident, first, the employer has to handle it. And if it's not done properly, we'll see how we can manage that. So far, if anything, if something is not clear, please let me know, put it in the chat, and soon I'm going to take a tiny break and you can ask me all the questions you want using your mic. Okay, so I'm bombarding you with information, but again, if it's, if something is frightening you or not, or like, don't be afraid to ask those questions. Now, key employment conditions. I've been referring to something very important here. It's the contract. Every single worker in Canada is entitled to understand clearly how they can work with their employer. So you can obtain a contract either in French or in English. This is a federal right, actually. So you're good to go with this. And if you have trouble, to understand it because maybe you're not comfortable with English, please know that you can always reach out to a community center or an organization like today to seek help and make sure you're not signing something you don't understand. Your contract should always include your job title, a description. Please know that the description is usually informative. It doesn't state everything that you're supposed to do, but the main task you're supposed to actually perform. The duration of employment, if it's a temporary contract, and also your condition of ending of employment. If your contract isn't clear, of course, like I said, ask questions to the employer. Don't be afraid. Your future employer should never force you or pressure you to sign something without giving you proper time to read it. And proper time here in Canada is usually between 24 to 72 hours. That's the average, okay? So don't sign something right away. Take the time to read it and understand it. Another thing that is important here, usually it's not because something is written on a contract that it is legal. So from time to time, you will see an employer saying, hey, in this contract, if you break something, if you break your safety shoes, then you have to pay for it. Or they're going to try to put a lot of different conditions that actually are not necessarily applicable. So it's important for you to understand what is essential on the contract, what matters really, and what is accessory. So even if you sign the contract, you know that you're not legally bound by it for those specific points. For example, if the employer tells you, hey, you have to work 44 hours per week and any additional hours will not be paid. This is illegal. So even if you sign that, you're going to have to perform the 44 hours because this is fine, this is legal. But if they're not paying you for your overtime, it's illegal. So even if you sign, you're okay, you're fine, you're protected. You can always complain and say, no, you're going to pay them. The other thing here, and it's very, very important, is not just as a worker, but as a person, you are protected. No matter your city, where the country you're from, your ethnicity, your sexual orientation, gender identity, age, religion, no matter who you are and what you represent, as long as you're willing and able to perform the work that is required of you, you cannot be discriminated upon. And you're protected on a federal level and on a provincial level from discriminations. So if you feel at one point you are discriminated, there's a phone number for that. You can have conversations about it. So you have the right to be protected from harassment, from verbal, physical abuse or psychological abuse, from discrimination on, being not hired because maybe you're not from the right ethnicity, or being passed on a promotion because people think that you don't have the right religion. This is illegal, okay? You should be only evaluated on the same principle, on fair basis, like everybody else. I'm gonna take a tiny sip of water here. Do we have any questions? Do we have remarks? Is everything clear so far? Yes? Okay. All right. Let's continue. And side note here, I know when you start a job, it can be quite intimidating to, go up to the employer and ask questions and feel like maybe you're defying them, and maybe you think that they're going to be displeased and they're going to fire you just on a whim. Same thing here. This cannot happen. This should not happen because this is illegal here. An employer cannot fire you just for the pleasure of it. Employers usually need a justification for it, especially after the probation period. So we'll come back to that also. But something that is important, and I started talking about it, is health and safety at work. It's a little bit of side note here, but it's part of your employees' rights. And you have protections here. So few things. Like I said before, you have the right to know if there's any dangers, any kind of danger in your work. Please make sure to cut the mics. Perfect, thank you. These protection extend to your ability to know the danger, and the beauty of it is it's not just you knowing about it, it's you being an active participant in knowing them and preventing them. So one of your rights is the right to participate, which means that you can report any dangerous situation to your supervisor or the health and safety resource person in your company, to take part in the safety trainings. That's also very important. Please, whenever there's a safety training, take the time to listen carefully, because this might actually save lives. I've seen it. I worked in quite a few factories, and you could tell people that were aware of dangers and people that were not paying attention. And usually that's the difference between someone having a healthy and safe work environment and someone losing a foot, a hand, or simply, going to the hospital because they broke an arm or something. Yes, that can be quite dangerous. So be careful about it. A very simple example I can give you is one day in a warehouse I was working in, we had someone that just arrived, didn't pay attention to the safety tips and trainings, and decided that it was easier and safe and completely safe for this person to climb in the warehouse on not using the proper forklift to go and get the right, the right goods. And this person would just climb on the ladder like this up to I think it was 15 meters high. They climbed, took something, and they started to descend like this. They did it once or twice. We caught them. We had to actually retrain them. And a week later, they did it again, but this time they slept because they had wet shoes. And this person actually broke an arm. So this person was immobilized, had to go to hospital, re-education, all of that. So just be careful, listen, and even if safety method makes the work slower, it's safer. Now, going back to here, you have the right to share your opinion, not only as an employer, but as a safety partner. And that's very important to know this. Because if you look at a situation and you're like, no, this looks dangerous. This actually might be a risk for all of us. Let's say, for example, there's been some electrical work done, or there's been an incident, and now you have wires, live electricity wires pending, and this is a very dangerous situation. But you don't necessarily see sparkles. You just see maybe a cable pending like this. You have the right to inform your boss and say, hey, there's a dangerous situation. We cannot work right now. We have to fix this first. And your employer is responsible for fixing this. So if something like this happens, you can say no. You can stop working until this is fixed. And if your employer refuses to do anything, there's a phone number, there's a website, you can call them. They're usually pretty responsive, and your employer cannot punish you for doing the right thing. Some may try. They're not, commonly they won't, but some may try. In that case, you are protected by the law again. So your responsibility is here because, it's a right and it's a responsibility. You have to follow the training, the training in safety. You have to use the right equipment, and you have to use this equipment the right way. Okay, and you have to report any hazardous situation or incident. Another thing also that is good to know, if you're given a helmet and you sit on it, please know that it's not the right way to use it. The helmet is on the head, and that I'm telling you that because this goes both ways. If you're not using this equipment the right way, your employer can actually punish you there. If the employer takes the time to train you, to make sure you know how to use properly the equipment, and you're not doing so, well, the employer can retaliate, legally speaking. I'm just checking if we have any questions. Alors, let's see. Everything is clear so far, but this is not the practice in the workplace. I have been discriminated against because of my race and this job because employer is not comfortable with my dressing. It's also very hard as an immigrant to be supported here. Yes, I do understand that. And actually, I do have some material for that. It's important to know so first of all, you're protected by the law. There's support for this. And one of the major things also here as newcomers is the difference in cultures. An example is, I know that in France or in some Arabic countries, we like to wear some perfume when we go to work because we're like, oh, yeah, I'm professional, I'm chic, it's okay. Whereas here, for example, perfume is frowned upon. Like you may have a little, it's fine, but if you put too much, then it's considered harassment. So this is where also, I'm not saying your case, you're the one that did something wrong. No, but it's also important to understand what is admissible and acceptable and what is not. And you're right. If you're being discriminated, then you should definitely look into that, and you should definitely call the phone number I will provide after. I see a hand raised as well, Safa.
Yeah, if I can ask the question. Well, regarding the what you have mentioned earlier, the near miss, when we notice a hazard or when we notice there are potential danger, should we inform by written, or is that okay to reach out to the supervisor just Directly. I'm talking about that because, to save the evidences that I reported this malfunctioning and I clear my side, kind of.
Safad, that's a great question. We're actually going to talk about it after, but I'd like just to make sure that everybody knows. There's a famous saying here. It's TYB, and just between us, this is what we say in the work environment: cover your butt. So what it means is make sure that if you report verbally something and you think it's not enough, usually, especially for workplace incidents or safety hazards, there's like papers that are going to be available in the area, a report. You can fill out this report. If you think that's not enough, you can send an email. If you feel that maybe there's an issue or you feel unsafe, you can record if you think that's necessary for you. Just make sure if you recording is usually the last step for you. If you really think you're in a work environment that trust is no longer applicable, if you do record, make sure you're not recording any commercial secrets from the employer. So if you're recording an incident, you have to do it in an area where there's something that is not protected by, for example, intellectual property. In that case, it's fine. And the other person doesn't have to know that you're recording. You're protected in that sense as well. But you cannot, after that, defamate and put everything online. If you are, gathering this material, it's for the inquiry that you're going to do afterwards. Safa, does it answer your question?
Not really, because it's a bit confusing. It's culturally not okay to send an email because usually, like, comme on dit en français, les paroles s'envolent, les écrits restent. So the thing is, if I write something by email, I will make sure that it reach to that person. When I will just say it verbally, maybe that person did not hear that, did not understand. So it's not the way to, as you mentioned, to be at the safe side. It's just what is common here in the workplace. If I send an email, is it hurting someone else? Is it saying that I don't trust you, so I send you an email, or is that okay to send an email from the first report?
Okay, I get your point in that case. So the first thing to know is each and every employer, they have a set of rules whenever there's an issue. So you have to go through that. So if the employer says the first step is to verbally mention this, you have to follow this step. Once it is done, if you think it's not enough, put the email. But the email doesn't have to be, hey, I told you this, why it's not done. I'm sure you know how to properly and gently convey the information, such as, hey, Thomas, I hope everything is okay. And as we discussed yesterday, I just wanted to inquire about the safety issue I mentioned to you, and then you detail it simply. Thank you very much, and looking forward to have your update. And by doing so, very gentle, not aggressive, and it's okay. But make sure to comply first with the rules that are set by the employer. And you should, because it's on par with the health and safety regulations from New Brunswick. So that should be okay. I know we also had Taleb. Taleb, you wanted to add something about this or ask a different question?
Yes, Thomas. Just to follow up on whatever our colleague was saying, I would do the other way around. I would send an email titled reporting a threat, reporting a risk or something like this. Dear manager, just to bring to your attention that I have noticed this 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. Documented. I can then follow up after that verbally with the manager saying, hey, David, for example, did you get my email? Oh, I was checking this one. I've noticed that this is happening, just for your information. Done. So later stage, you have already reported in an email and you already talked to him in person, just in case he missed the email, or maybe he just said, okay, I'm going to take an action, but then it slipped from him. So I prefer to start with an email, doing as a casual reporting, as a good person or good employees, reporting a threat, reporting a risk, etc. Done. Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Taleb, for this. Just something that is very important to know here. If you have access to a computer and you usually have a desk job, Taleb is right. You can make an email. That's usually easy. If, like most people that work in, for example, a factory, you're on the floor, you're in the operations all the time, you don't have access to a computer. So here, usually the first reaction is you're going to verbally state there's an issue, and then you're going to state it to the manager, you're going to state it to the health and safety resource manager, you're going to state it to your union rep, if there's one present too. And usually those people are going to, do the right steps afterwards, like sending emails, making reports. And if you have a doubt, yes, Taleb is right, send an email. But just please make sure to comply with the rules and the steps in the rules that your employer will give you. This is why the training here is important, because sometimes, especially if you're in a factory, if you're in a warehouse, if you don't notify right away verbally, you're going to get stuck. There's going to be an issue. You could lose precious minutes to stop work and protect people. And on the other end, an email can be quicker if you're at the desk job. All right, let's move on. Let's continue. What do we have after that? We have, oh yeah, the employer responsibility. So I did talk a bit about this, but just to refresh everybody, the employer has the responsibility to inform you about the risks, to train you properly, to provide you with the right protective equipment. This is very important here. If you work in an environment that is very noisy, the employer should provide you with protective earrings. If you, not protective earrings, but protections for your ear. If you work in a warehouse, you should always be provided with, what's it called? Safety shoes. If you work in a cold environment, the employer may provide you also with gloves and things like this. So make sure to know those conditions ahead of time. And if the employer doesn't provide you with anything and say, hey, no, you have to buy it, that's illegal. There's rules for that. If you're supposed to only use it on the work site, then it's the responsibility of the employer to provide it. However, you have to know something here is if you're provided with, for example, I had the example where someone would have a helmet, but they would sit on their helmet most of the time. Thus, whenever they would sit on it, they would actually crack it because of tiny stones behind, and they would do stupid stuff with it. And after that, they would come back to me and say, hey, I need a new helmet. This one is broken. And we had to let go this person because they kept breaking the material provided by the employer because they were not using it right. Please make sure to mute yourself. Maruf. All right, perfect. Thank you. So this is important. It's not because we'll provide you with protective equipment that you can use it the way you want or use it outside of the scope of work. Your safety shoes are not meant to be used on a Saturday night, even if they're very, very good looking. So beware of this. After this could cost you money, actually. So after that, correcting dangerous situations, always, the employer here, when we report something, has the responsibility to fix this. It might not do this the way you want it, but it will try to do it in the way that is the best cost-effective way. And if it's not working for you guys, just know that you still have possibilities to complain about it, to discuss about it, and we'll actually look at it. I think it's right after. Let's see together. Yes, okay, we're gonna check it in a minute. But I was talking about, your rights. You have also some obligations. It's very important to know them because if you don't comply with your obligations, you're probably gonna lose the job here. So your role in the company, you have to respect, of course, everything that is related to safety instructions and report hazards. If you don't report a hazard, that also can bite you back. So once you receive the training, you're considered aware and you're considered like able to inform about safety risks. And that's why you have to listen carefully. You have to ask all the questions that you want. It's better to look stupid during your training than to act stupidly while you're working. You're also, if you're unsure on how to use a machine, even if we showed you the day before, ask for help. Make sure you use them properly, those machines, because they're usually unforgiving. If you see a hazard, again, report it immediately. And if you're sick or injured, don't hide it. Let the employer know, okay? It happens, it's fine. How many times I actually had an employee coming to me because they cut themselves, or it's fine. It's no big deal. We prefer you to be safe and recover, because that's also very important. I used to work in a factory where they would actually make food. So anyone having a tiny cut on their hands, if you drop just if you drop a little bit of blood on like a batch of food, sometimes it can be hundreds or thousands of dollars of production that has to be thrown away because it has been contaminated. So we prefer for you to take a 10-minute break. We fix you up, we patch you up, you're good to go. Okay, let's go. Or if you're sick and you come to work and people report me that you're sick, I might have to let you go back to home because you're not fit to work. So make sure you understand that. Make sure that also some employees are more lenient than others, but comply with safety rules no matter what happened. And make sure that if you are in a situation where you've been hurt at work or at home, let your employer know to make sure that you can still perform the work the way it's intended to in the best and the safest way possible. And we're going back here to something I was mentioning before. The employers, they have the law, but they also have their own way, their own rules and policies to use. So it's important for you guys to know them and use them properly. They exist because it's an efficient way for them to work. I mean, efficient, there's always place to improve, but this is what happened. So your main obligation, for example, is to arrive on time for work. And here, culturally speaking, in Canada, arriving on time at work doesn't mean that if you started at working at 8, you don't arrive at work at 8. You arrive 15 minutes before. You have time to dress up, prepare, and at 8, you work. The reason why I'm a little bit insistent on that is a simple example. Let's say you work in a factory and they have the 3-8. That means that the factory is working non-stop. If you arrive late, that means that the people that worked all night, that are tired, they just want to go home, see their family, well, they have to work a little bit more. And that statistically put them in a higher risk to have an accident. So make sure to respect them. And if you have to start working at 8, you're ready to do the transmission here to the exchange. All right, the other things, and if you're late, communicate, let them know. That's very important too. Don't be afraid. Call them. Make sure you know the phone number to call as well. Say, hey, I'm gonna have 5 minutes late. The bus is running late. Okay, I'm here. I'm trying. Of course, if you're late every day, the employer might actually retaliate, but it's it's administrative retaliation. Huh? It's nothing bad, but just make sure to be on time as much as you can. Respect your colleagues and supervisors. Politeness and collaborations are essential. In some cultures, like for example in France, we can express our emotions, especially in a negative way, to prove a point. In Canada, this is not acceptable. If you're frustrated, don't scream, don't yell. Simply say it. Our conversation is quite frustrating for me because I'm trying to do this and you tell me I can't do that. So I'd like to find a compromise here, a solution where everybody can do their job. This is important to understand that, because otherwise you could be perceived as, like your behavior could be perceived as harassment. But of course we understand, like if there's a risk and you're trying to express the urgency of it and that everything has to stop. Yeah, sometimes you might scream, but keep it really, really, like, it's better to be polite, professional than desperate, emotional, and very loud. That's not working most of the time. Use work tools responsibly. Again, keep also internal information confidential. This is another part here that is to be expected. If you work in a bank, we don't want you to advertise the names of the clients. It's confidential. We don't want you to tell it to everybody, hey, you know, this person has an account in our bank and he has that amount of money in it. No, that's confidential information. If you have a doubt about what's confidential or not, ask the question, because you could lose your job for that. How many people have lost their job because they wanted to advertise on LinkedIn or Facebook and say, hey, look, I'm working here. And they would take pictures inside the office showing like confidential information or intellectual property that was protected. You have to be really careful about those things and avoid conflicts at all costs and inappropriate behavior. What this means is, like I said, culturally, we have some differences, but if you like someone at work and you're trying to seduce them, just know that most of the time, any type of a seductive approach will be considered sexual harassment, because culturally we do things differently here. If you scream on someone because you're frustrated, that's harassment. If you insult someone, or if you don't say hello to someone and you say hello to everybody else, that could be considered harassment. So be aware that, you know, we all have different ways of behaving. And you're probably telling yourself right now, okay, Thomas, but if I can't do all of that, what am I supposed to do? And the answer is very simple. Imagine you are in presence of someone that is, I don't know, imagine simply that no matter what you do, you have to show respect. You don't have to be formal. You have to show respect, and then simply expect that people also are going to be respectful to you. So saying hello, smiling, asking how are you, that's the basics. If you feel frustrated, don't express it with a violent behavior. And then when I say violent behavior, it's, you know, screaming or being a little bit insulting. Don't do that. State your feeling. Hey, today when we talked about this, I felt a little bit uncomfortable. I felt maybe you were not listening, and I want to, you know, fix things. When you approach things this way, you're diffusing any potential situation, because you're being calm, you're expressing your emotions, your expectations. I expect from this conversation this, and this. Can we make it happen or not? What do you need? How can we work together? By approaching things like this, you're doing what we call non-violent communication, and this will do marvels. Really, it will change your way of interacting with people around you at work. Sometimes we need to be straightforward, but most of the time you'll see that this is great to build trust and compromises at work. All right, here now we have a problem. How do we fix it? What do we do? We're still on time. I love that. We're good to go. So 4 steps here. The first one is, and shout out again to Safa and Taleb for their comments earlier, speak up and document. When there's an issue, we have to find it, we have to fix it. And again, talk to your supervisor. If you feel that you're not necessarily safe in your organization, you can speak with someone from an outside organization, like, for example, a community organization, an employment counselor, or one of the resources I'm going to give you. And gather evidences. If your employer is not paying you your time, your overtime, or your time, just basically, what you can do is you gather your contract. You also make sure you get your pay stubs, your emails. There's also different apps you can use to record your time, your working time, also your geolocation. This will help you prove whatever problem you have. This will help simply justify it. Note precise dates and people they were involved in this issue, what they say if possible. Again, you can record with some context, but be careful with that. And these elements are, essential if you need to make a complaint. If you arrive to an inspector and say, hey, the employer did that. Okay, when? What time? How many times was it done? Is this recurrent? Is it only you? Is it other people, etc., etc.? So if you don't know, if you don't remember what I'm telling you now, one of the things you can do is if you're using AI, like DeepSeek, ChatGPT, Copilot, Perplexity, etc., you can simply ask them, say, hey, I work in New Brunswick and I'm facing this issue. What should be the steps for me to do in order to document that if I need to make a complaint? AI is not perfect, okay? It's not a lawyer, it's not the perfect solution. However, it will help you to structure and organize all the information you need to make sure that your problem is fixed in the fastest way possible. Two examples I want to give you. First one is I had an employee one day complaining that their hours were not paid properly. But one day they came to me and they were like, hey, our hours are not paid properly. It's like, okay, talk to your supervisor, talk to accounting, make sure it's set properly. And they said, no, it's a problem, but I don't know how, but it's happening. Like, okay. So we're going to have to inquire. We're going to have to look around. And what happened is I had to inquire and I had to, investigate. I couldn't find anything. And then an employee realized that the machine had been tampered with and it was removing 5 minutes every hour on the pay stub of every candidate employee. So of course, when we realized that, we had to change things, correct things. So that was one of those times where we've been reported something and we were able to correct it. Another time we had an employee. He was complaining that he was not getting enough money compared to other people. And we asked him if he could justify that, and he could not. So we said, but in that case, we can't do anything. You're paid the same as the other people that do the same job. So the answer is no. And he ended up going in court, and he lost in court because he could not provide evidences, despite, having access to documents. So make sure here to have the right balance. If you feel that you have been unfairly treated, there's actions to be done. There's documents to be found. We can do things. The second thing here, you're probably going to have to file a complaint if you need to go that far. In that case, if your issue concerns, for example, work hours, wages, vacation, termination, all of that, it's the employee right and obligations of New Brunswick. So you're going to go on their official website, and in this presentation, anything here that you can see is highlighted in red is a hyperlink. You can click on it, you access to the website, and you follow the steps. You can then complain either online or paper. You provide the information, all the information you have, and you attach documents you have also. Make sure that if you attach documents, they're not protected here, unless it's a big issue, like your employees poisoning the water of the region. Yeah, of course, this is general public safety. This is different. But if you decide to put as a complaint the secret plans of the machine that makes a very specific bread that is protected and etc., this is not going to help you probably. So your name, your contact information, your hours, etc., that's okay. A person will contact you back. A person will ask you questions to make sure they understand your complaint, and then they will contact your employer and investigate. They will never tell the employer that it's you, because everything that you saw here is anonymous. So you will be protected. And I'll put useful number, but we're going to see it after again also. Number 3 here, safety issues. So you can complain to employment standards about your hours, condition of work, but if it's related to health and safety, that's contact WorkSafe. That's WorkSafe New Brunswick. Please know that when it comes to health and safety, you can request the detail, the information provided by the government in 10 different languages. So if you're not comfortable with English, you can ask Arabic, etc., and Spanish, etc., etc. So don't be shy. Ask them. Make sure you understand them. It's everything related to your safety rights, to your ability to report an accident or injuries. And of course, it's free and it's confidential. So never pay for that. Never. And I put 2 links for this. The last thing, it's pretty much impacting everyone here today. It's about foreign temporary workers. You are protected under federal law. An employer cannot pay you differently from a Canadian for the same work. An employer cannot, if the employers provide you with a home, because maybe you are a temporary worker for agriculture, and they're like, okay, no, I will have something for you. They cannot provide you with a house that is dirty or dangerous. Okay, you have also the right to a free harassment workplace. We can't harass you because you're a foreigner. It's not like this that it happens. And you have the right, of course, to keep your documents. When at one point your employer is going to ask you for proof of visa, and that's normal. But your employer cannot keep it. They're going to show it, they're going to make a copy of it, and you're going to take it back right away. You don't wait. You don't wait the end of the day. No, you stay with it, with your documents, and you take it back. If an employer say, no, you have to give me your passport, I'm gonna keep it for the amount of time you're gonna work with me, this is illegal. Okay, don't do that. Report this person immediately. And of course, I give you a few contacts here, phone number and online report if you see an abuse. I'm taking a bit here. Do we have any questions, remarks? Is there anything that is not making sense or making sense? Maybe feel free. Or if you're comfortable talking about a situation where you think maybe there was something, or maybe people did not behave properly with you and maybe it's infringing on your rights, please know that we can only talk in a general manner here. I'm not a legal advisor, but it's important to know your rights and be aware of them and use them properly. We good? Okay, continuing here. The tools and links. Question, Shiva. Yes.
So I just have a doubt. So you mentioned how, if I'm working, but once my shift over and the next person is supposed to come in, and in case that person is not coming in on time, I'm not getting paid any overtime for the minutes I stay there. And so what am I supposed to do about those kind of situations?
Excellent question. If your manager, let's say it's 8 o'clock in the morning, you're supposed to finish your shift, and your manager is not saying anything, not telling you to, okay, your day is done, you can go, and you have to stay. You can ask your manager, hey, are we done with the day? Like it's 8. That's another thing also. You have the right to look at the time. And your manager says, no, the other team they haven't come yet, so you have to stay, but we won't be paying you your hours. No, that doesn't work. If your manager says you have to stay more, you are automatically entitled to be paid for this overtime. It's not necessarily overtime in the sense you're going to be paid 1.5 times, but it means that you're going to be paid more than 8 hours in that case. So beware of this.
Yep. Yeah, sorry. It's just that the manager is not on the site. It's like me and another colleague will be working the overnight shift, and we just wait for the next person to come in the morning, let's say. And in case the person doesn't show up, we are just meant to stay there until that person comes in, and we don't have an option. So that's why I don't know what to do about it so far.
Okay, so was it clearly stated by your supervisor that you had to stay and continue to work until you were replaced?
So far, it has been mentioned. I mean, it's just something that it's a non-spoken thing that I always kept doing and others kept doing. That's why.
Okay, so several ways to go about it. The first one is you can simply say, send a message and say whatever his name is. Hey, Thomas, just to let you know, the morning team arrived several times in the past, month late. So we had to stay and work an additional 15, 30 minutes. on those dates, and then you mention those dates, and you say, I just want to have a clarification on the policy here. Do we have to stay and continue to work until this team arrives, or do we stop at 8? I just want to clarify this. And depending what they say, well, if they say no, you have to continue working, that means you have to be paid for this overtime. And if they say no, you have to stop working, okay, good, done. So just, you don't have to say, hey, you have to pay me more. You just have to clarify here the context, because if they say you have to continue, then once they confirm, say, okay, in that case, can we adjust the pay to reflect the additional time that was worked on those dates? And every time they're late, you can send an email, say, okay, today, 15 minutes, the team was 15 minutes late. Please make sure to, I just want to notify you this for the pay. Managers might not be happy about it, but you have to understand that this is completely normal for you to do it. There's a nice way to do it, but it's your right to be paid for the time you work. And if the manager this way realize that the morning team is late all the time, they need to take action. Otherwise, they're simply gonna have to pay you more. Shiva, is that okay? Is that clear?
Yeah, that's so clear. I mean, it's so much helpful. Thank you so much for that, Boris. It's just that I have been so nervous to talk about it so far, because whenever I bring up something, the manager or the assistant manager just kept saying that, I mean, they might bring this up saying that why was I not informed about this before? Because it's just that I am just so afraid to go up, confronting something about this. So I just not do anything about it, just keep quiet about it. That's why.
I get it. And something that is very important for everybody today. Confrontation is never the answer. It's usually the last answer possible. So Shiva, my trick for me is when I want to ask something to my boss, like for example, I want a pay increase, or I want to know if my overtime is paid. I don't go there and I say, hey, you forgot to pay me my hours, or hey, I worked more, so you have to pay me more. What I do is I think, okay, what does my manager need here? They need to know if I'm working more because there's an issue or anything like this. So I'm framing my sentences in a way where I am helping them. Say, hey, I realized that the morning team is late on quite a few days, and this is impacting the work quality. As you know, we're trying to make sure that we work our full shift, but like irregularly, it comes and it impacts the work. So I want to notify you of this and make sure that you can actually take the decisions needed to correct this. Thank you again for your help and your support. And by doing so, you're notifying them you're working more. You're notifying them there's a work schedule issue here. Is that clear, Shiva?
Yes, that's so much helpful, Boris. Thank you so much for that.
Okay, my
That helps
pleasure.
a lot.
And Taleb, yes.
Yes, Thomas. Just to follow up on Shiva's point, the main factor here, Shiva, is that we're coming from a country or from culture where we cannot speak up. And this is, I have seen it in many, especially in India or in Dubai, work with many people. I can see that the culture or from where we're coming from is having a big effect, which I started to see that this is not the story here in Canada. Here, there's no one above the law. Culture has no effect on this one. Also, because we have some sort of levels in our countries where the strong guy can be dominant on the weak guy. So this is where we don't speak up. But I think here, there's no one above the law, and the laws are protecting everyone here. They are all the same, I believe.
Thank you, Todd, for providing with this perspective. Yes. And it's yes, you're right. The employer has rights and obligations. So do workers. So it's always making sure that you find the right approach in your communication, and ChatGPT can help you a little bit with that as well. Yes, Katerina.
Okay, I have a question. So to everything you just described, what if the person goes to their immediate supervisor and tells them, like informs them politely, gently about the situation, and nothing happens? What do they do next?
Excellent question. So usually there's, different possibilities here. Let's say you work in an office, you talk to your boss and you told them verbally, they're not doing anything. You send them an email, they're not responding. Then you do what everybody does, you escalate. And you contact their boss's boss and say, hey, I was trying, I wanted to let you know about this issue, and you provide the email trail. Say, I wanted just to inform you that I'm sure, my boss is quite busy, so I want to highlight this because it's becoming an urgent problem and this requires your attention. That would be scenario number one. You escalate through the hierarchy. Situation scenario number two. You're in a factory or you're in a place where you have either, if it's work and safety related, you can talk to the work and safety manager. If it's related to your working hours, then there's two options here. You can escalate like I did before, or maybe you are unionized. You belong to a syndicate. In that case, you talk to the union rep. This is something also that is very important. A lot of jobs here are unionized. It means that you're going to pay a little bit of money every month to be protected by this union. And in exchange, you're going to get better salary, better protections, better work conditions overall. But that also means that when you have an issue, you can go and talk to this person because the union rep, his role is actually to confront the employer on your behalf to fix things. So it's an added layer of protection when you have it. It's quite nice. The other things I want to show you to respond to, excellent question of Katrina, is the reminder of services. If you feel like you're a victim of harassment and the HR is not doing anything about it, or you don't have the impression that something is done about it, or you're not informed that if there is any progress, like in case of a harassment, an HR cannot give you the specifics while they're doing the investigation, but they can tell you whether or not it's moving on. And if you feel it's not moving fast enough, then you can go see the government. If it's for, and I give you almost every single type of issue in existence and who to contact. Like if it's harassment, there's the New Brunswick Human Rights Commission. If it's health and safety, it's WorkSafe New Brunswick, etc., etc. If you are, you're in a company that they only everybody just speaks French, but they hired you and you don't speak French, well, you can complain because you have the right to get your information in your work environment also in English to understand what you have to do and how to interact with people. So here it's the Office of Commissioner for the Official Language of New Brunswick. So there's always a way for you to escalate and find the right interlocutor. So again, either it's your direct report, your direct manager, or the manager of this manager, and you can continue to go up the chain. And if they complain to you and say, hey, why did you not talk to me? You say, well, I actually sent you 2 emails and you didn't respond. So I had to escalate. I had no choice. That's the process. And if you look at the policies in the companies, 99% of the companies will have a policy like this. If you're unable to speak with your direct manager, go see the HR or go see the manager of your manager. Katarina, is that answering the question?
Yes, thank you.
That was a long answer, I know, but let's make sure that it works for everybody. I have here somebody saying, is there any legal rights to career growth or promotion for employees within the same company in Canada? Yes, of course. If let's say there's an opportunity, your manager is retiring and, well, you want to become the manager. The employer normally has to open the role internally and externally. So most companies will open it internally first and then externally. And if the employers, if you apply for it formally, they have to give you an answer. Things that are important to know. I give you a few tips and tricks here. It's important to speak with your manager. It's important to build a network inside your company to get visibility and to be considered whenever there's an option, whenever there's a promotion. Sometimes it's difficult to do that, or you may be uncomfortable, and it's okay, it happens. But if you feel that you're a victim of discrimination, You have to gather a little bit of information as much as you can. Like, for example, if you the employer has to post a job description for this role. If you actually feel every single point, you're like, no, that's me. I have the right experience, everything. So the employer will have to justify why they've hired someone externally rather than you, or they've hired someone with less experience from your team and not you. Justification is mandatory here. And if you feel it's not enough, then you can contact the New Brunswick Human Rights Commission for potential discrimination. This is usually, the last step you want. First, you want to have the conversation with the people in your company, and it's perfectly fine. And you would be surprised sometimes, because when you actually, and I've seen that quite often, people are like, hey, why is this person getting this job when I applied? Like, is it possible maybe to do, I don't, they're not going to say it like this, huh? They're going to say, hey, I've noticed that this position has been filled, but I'm a little bit, I was quite motivated to be considered for this role. Can you tell me more if what happened, or if they're an equivalent role, as I would, I'm looking to evolve in this company. I really appreciate it. And you would be surprised. People sometimes say, "Oh, really? You applied? I didn't realize. I didn't see it." So when it happens like this, or we were not aware that you applied. Okay, but where did you apply? Well, on the website. It's right here. Oops. Okay, so we're gonna have to maybe reconsider the hire. And I've seen that as well, when sometimes we hire someone from external, and then I get the message, well, actually, we have to cancel that because somebody internally manifested itself, and now we're going to go with this person. And that's the other thing. So be careful also. Sometimes they only advertise it online. They don't necessarily make an announcement internally. So make sure you have your notifications on. This can avoid also some issues. I hope this answered the question. But again, if you feel you're a victim of discrimination, talk about it with the HR, talk about it with the manager. And if you feel that nothing is moving on, go with the New Brunswick Human Rights Commission. And Samir, let me know if yep, okay, perfect. I see we still have a little bit of time, 15 minutes. So is everything clear? Do you feel comfortable with this? Do you guys want maybe a little bit more information? There's one thing I haven't talked about it yet. I mean, I've skimmed over, which is the unionized employment, because it's not necessary. This unions, they're here to protect your rights and enhance you. But that's that's on top of everything I just said. So it's always nice. But if there's a specific case or a situation where you're uncomfortable, you don't know what to do, actually I have a solution for you, because I'm not just giving you this. I want to offer you something very efficient. It's your first day checklist. What should be all the questions? You don't have to ask all those questions, but the questions you should ask. For example, your work day. What are your daily working hours, if they usually don't change, or if they change? No, please know that if your hours change, your employer has to provide them with sufficient, advance. Can't call you at night and say, hi, you have to work tomorrow morning at 3 a.m. No, you're allowed to refuse because it's not enough time for you to prepare. There's a few things you need to know. What are your regular hours? When should you arrive when you need to start work? Because some actually employers ask you to come to arrive half an hour before, an hour before. In that case, they have to pay you for this hour as well. How much time do you need for your meal break, etc. Like pay and benefits. When do you receive your wages? How much you're supposed to be paid? Are you entitled to health and benefits, pension, union membership, all those things? Everything, not everything, but most of the question you might want to ask, they're right here. And on your first day, or even before you start, you can ask those questions. And yes, Safa, what is your question?
Yeah, first, thank you for the clear explanation. It was all clear. I just wanted to recapitulate about one point that I have mentioned at the very beginning when you were talking about the hourly wage. If you are paid yearly, you will get the full day payment, hourly
Yes.
3 hours a minimum, and you didn't talk about if you are independent. Uh, and I don't know if you mentioned it and I was not paying attention, or you didn't mention it. So it was there. The question didn't answer it yet. Please.
Oh, okay. Yeah, no, of course. And so if you are an independent contractor, You're not an employee, which means that the rights, here, most of what you saw doesn't apply. But, health and safety, always important here. It's applicable. Human Rights Commission, it's applicable as well. Mistreatment of foreign workers, to an extent, actually, it's more the discrimination, harassment, and health and safety applicable for contractors. Everything else, you're considered a company. Just know that. So here, I'd like to, there's something very important. If an employer make you sign a contract saying you are an independent worker, but you have to come and work on those days, those hours, here's how much you're going to earn. This is what you're going to have to do. This is a disguised, it's actually illegal, because you, at this point, you're not really considered a contractor. You're actually considered an employee. So depending on the nature of your contract, if you are an independent contractor, make sure to clear this out. Usually contractors are hired for a very specific mandate, mission, or service, where employees are asked to perform tasks either for like 6, 12, 9 months, like a temporary contract, or for not for eternity, but for as long as you can. So those are two distinct things. The other thing also, an employee is depending on the employer for a certain amount of things, where the contractor is just bound by a very simple contract of service, and usually you can get out of it pretty easily, rather than the employee. Is that clear? I know sometimes the definition is a little bit blurry, and this is where you have to ask your question, am I really a contractor, or am I actually an employee? But most of the time, it's pretty clear. It's either you have a gig job or you actually have a steady job. Is that okay? Is that clear?
Yeah, clear. The only thing, if you have any resources that will you can guide us through for the independent to know more about it, because this is honestly the jobs that are coming the most these days for me. So I was like wondering, what is it? Is it temporary? Is it, what are my actually my responsibilities? What are my kind of obligations, etc. So if you can just guide us through some resources, could be the best. Thank you.
Okay. Well, for independent contractors or employees, I would say one of the first steps, especially even for me now, when you go and you use AI like ChatGPT, for example, it's important to explain situation and say, hey, I'm an independent contractor, I'm an employee, and I need to know about this information. I need to know about overtime. I need to know whether or not my contract is the one of an actual contractor or an employee. Like, I need to understand the difference here. And don't ask ChatGPT to resolve this issue, but to provide you with resources or places to consider in order to resolve this issue. This will really, really help you clear any misunderstanding that is possible. Simple thing. If you're an employee and you're like, hey, what is the minimum wage in New Brunswick? And you ask that to ChatGPT, most of the time it will not give you the right number. It will give you probably $15.30 instead of $15.65. Instead, ask ChatGPT, hey, where can I find the information about minimum wage in New Brunswick? And ChatGPT will give you the right. It's like Google, but on steroids. And Safa, I hope this answers your question. I know here it's going to be a lot of legwork for you, but it really helps to structure your approach. And okay, perfect. I hope this will, make your life easier. We have 9 minutes left. I would like everybody to take just a minute. And if you've already worked in Canada, take a minute, review what you've done in the past, review exactly, how things were going with your employer. And if there's things you're like, oh, I have a doubt about this, maybe, in terms of the contract here, maybe something was good or not good. If, like, we talked about it before, if you are afraid to talk with the boss because it's the boss, my God, what are we going to do? We have to respect the boss. We cannot really do something or say something that would make them look bad. It's not about that. It's all about how you're going to frame your ask to show that you're not going against the person. It's simply that you're going to ask something to better perform a work that will bring more money to the company. If there is a work accident, this will stop, this will halt production, this will cost money to the employer. So it's actually, financially more sound to fix the issue. If you're afraid to say no to your employer, it's okay. You can just say, hey, I need a minute in order to review all of this, and I will get back to you tomorrow at noon or the day after. Give yourself time and space to make sure that you can come up with an appropriate answer. You don't have to always do things, especially for your contract. Don't sign it right away. Take the time to read it and understand. If you have any questions, ask them. If you need the rules and policies of the companies before signing, ask them. It's public knowledge. It's fine. There's no secrets in them usually. So, be confident. Everything's going to be fine. And again, you have all those resources that are here available for you, free to use. Again, if somebody is asking you for money to fix your problem at work, that's not good. That's illegal. Okay. Every single service of the government for you to protect you as a worker, they're free. And they will protect you as much as they can. They will anonymize all the information possible. So, be safe out there, be confident, and even beyond the government, beyond your boss, you are here today in an organization that is set to help you integrate yourself in Canada. So rely on this network, rely on this community, because it's made for you to thrive in this country. And if you have any other question, yes, Safa, yes.
I'm sorry. You remind me something about the don't sign your contract straight away.
Yes.
And I was wondering because I read somewhere that when you get a job offer, the employer is waiting for you to get back to them to negotiate the contract. And I don't know, in the Canadian work environment, is it something that's seen positively if you negotiate your wage, if you negotiate your scope of practice, your responsibilities, or maybe try to make it full time instead of part time? Is it something that's seen in a good way, or is it no, it's a red flag? You should not negotiate, you should just read. If you're okay with that, sign it. If you are not, you just apologize and not open, like decline the offer, let's say.
Yeah, that's a good one. Well, again, it's all about how you're gonna explain it. If you get an offer and you're like, hey, that's not paying enough, like I need more money. I have people doing this. This is not gonna work because it's all about you. But if you say, for example, thank you for this offer, I am so excited to be part of your team, and in order to do so, just I would like to modify just one thing here, and it's about the compensation, and it's about those specific tasks, or maybe it's about modifying this to be a full-time job. Because when we were talking, you did mention this point and this point, and in order for me to really perform to expectations, I believe that this tiny change should be made in the contract. And once it is done, I'll be the happiest and I'll sign right away. So what I'm doing here is I'm telling them I'm ready to work with you guys, and I'm minimizing the issue to make it more easy for them to say yes, and to also advertise that I'm reinforcing my understanding of their needs. And that's actually my justification to ask for this modification. It doesn't work every single time, but when you frame things like this, people are much more receptive and they will consider negotiating. And yes, in Canada, negotiation is part of the deal, except, and be careful with this, if you are on a unionized job, you're considering to be hired for a unionized job, or in the public sector, everything is usually pretty straightforward and there's not a lot of wiggle room for those roles. So usually you get what you get. But for everybody else, it's a free buffet. All right. Oh, yeah. One other important thing, Emma just added in the comments a form for feedbacks. Please take the time to fill it out because this helps us to improve the experience and what you leave today in this workshop. So take a minute, fill it out. Let us know if we did good today. If not, let me know how I can improve because I always love to improve. And I really hope this will help you. In the meantime, I don't know, Emma or Katerina, if you wanted to add something.